back at our convention, back in March, we set up 10 important issues that we as Democrats tend to be very concerned about. And we allowed you to read up on them and then vote. What were the top issues? You got to rank choice vote on them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm happy to say that the votes have been tallied, and we're going to talk about the top 4 issues as voted on in our convention in March. Top of the list was, and how timely, education. So we're feeling it here in Greenwood County. We are very concerned for our public education system. I could talk about a billion things here, but I'll focus on just one because it's very recent, and that has to do with what certain legislators call education scholarships. Sounds like this thing has been proposed every year for years. Well, guess what? It's finally been signed into law. And what they're doing is taking $5,000 out of the state's general fund and $6,000 and giving it to each of 5,000 families. Not sure yet how they're going to choose them, but they say, here's a $6,000. You can use it for, quote, tuition, transportation, supplies, or technology at either private schools or public schools outside of your district. So essentially, this is basically saying, here's some money to go spend at a private school, if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine, because guess what? The oversight of how this money is going to be spent is not going to be done very well. They're saying, well, we're not using public funds because we're not sending public funds to private schools against the state constitution. That's the claim they make. It is against the Constitution in South Carolina for public money to go to private schools. The argument here is we're not. We're giving it to the families. What they do with it, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, is go to private schools, where they get to jack up their tuition, free money for the private school owners. They're not held to the same standards, test scores, attendance, disabilities, accommodations that public schools are held to. And for every student that leaves a public school, the funding that belonged to that student goes with them. This is now out of the school. So truly it is robbing the poor to pay the rich. But it is law now. I'm sure it will be challenged. Their plan is to ramp it up from 5,000 to 15,000 over the next couple of years. It's the same law we've talked about in the past. The only reason it made it through this time is because in the state Senate, the concerns they had about these schools not having to hold the same standards, this year they didn't care about that. It defeated it last time. Now they seem not to care about standards. So that is now law. Any questions or comments about this before we move to the next one?
Was there someone in the upstate that voted against this? Because I remember hearing that there was like one shining light.
There was a Republican named Neil Collins who voted against this, yeah. And he's been pretty rational. If you're looking at a Republican to kind of like, he's one. Even though I can disagree with him on a number of issues, he always takes the time to explain it, and he does vote against the party line on occasion.
Do you have the number for that law?
No, but we can provide it. I don't have the number on me. But you know what? If you grab a sheet on education, the issue sheet, I think the number is on there. Thank you. Good question. Okay, second item. So that was issue number 1. Issue number 2 was gun violence. This was a concern. Every day, we talked about what happened in Atlanta. The company I work for, their headquarters was right next to the building that was shot up. And so they were on lockdown while I was on phone calls with them. Right? So, the Atlanta shooting is just one of a number. There's not much to talk about legislatively speaking because we don't have any laws. All right, it's open. I mean, you got guns, wear your ammo and carry your guns. We're one of those constitutional carry states now. So not much we can do there, but I will bring up this one very interesting thing. In Richland County, that's where our state capital is, County Council was asked to give tax breaks to a gun manufacturer that's in town. They wanted to expand their facilities, and the County Council said no. In fact, there was a recent shooting in the Columbia area, And they said, listen, we can't in good conscience with the gun violence that's sweeping our state and our nation, do tax refunds and tax breaks for this company. So they voted no. 5-5, the motion didn't pass. Sounds like good news, right? But 2 weeks later, they reversed course. Somehow, somebody got into the ears of a couple of the no votes, and those legislators have now completely flip-flopped, and they now voted for those tax breaks. And here's a quote. Barron said that though she was, quote, heavy-hearted over the recent shooting in her district, quote, I removed my feelings when it came to considering what she believed was best economically. So basically, money over blood is what they voted on, and now those tax breaks are in place to the shame of Richland County. We have a question.
No, it's not a question.
Okay.
On that
Could
note,
you go closer to the microphone, please?
okay,
Thank you.
on that note, the sheriff's, I think it's the sheriff's report for April, within the past 2 weeks, they arrested a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 20-year-old with a drive-by shooting in one of our neighborhoods here in Greenwood. And he was so concerned because here's a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old in a car, driving by a house and shooting someone. The people inside, they were at a gathering party. It was supposedly not gang violence, but that's what he was concerned about is our neighborhood, is that we need to do something about this culture that it's okay to shoot and kill. So you're talking about Atlanta. I'm talking about Greenwood, South Carolina.
That's
folks.
right.
So I'm not going to give you the details. I want you to listen to the report this past month for what had been going on. And what he was doing was giving updates of positive things and things that are happening that we need to be aware of.
Thank you, Audrey. We will. We'll look for that sheriff's report and share that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the only, on that note, the mental health, Mr. Quarles mentioned about the need for mental health. I cannot tell you the details, but I'm personally aware of a situation of someone in a resident home here in Greenwood, went to Greenville, and had not gotten proper mental health, committed suicide this week. So I will personally be contacting that agency and trying to connect them with some resources here that are not for charge. And the reason this agency doesn't have mental health services, they say, is because the residents don't have insurance.
Right.
Okay, so folks, I'm telling you real stories.
Yeah, these aren't abstract. This is happening right now.
Medicaid is needed. Insurance coverage is needed. Mental health is needed in Greenwood, South Carolina.
All right, thank you, Audrey. The third issue that we voted on, number 3, was racial equity. And we talked last month about the hate crimes bill and how our own Senator Billy Garrett was the sole no vote on the Judicial Committee. And it still passed. It went to the Senate, but it is currently being held up. There are 3 senators who have objected to it, so therefore it is not being discussed, debated, or voted on. Essentially, the hate crimes bill is dead. A recent article came out saying South Carolina Democrats were frustrated because, you know, what is being debated are anti-CRT bills. So they are spending their time talking about CRT in schools, and the Senate Majority Leader, Shane Massey, I got to read this quote to you. It's insane. This is what he said. He said, this anti-CRT bill actually has the potential to address hate, said Republican Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey, about allowing students to come to their own conclusions based on facts about the history of slavery and segregation. What conclusions are there to come to on your own? He said, quote, that bill on hate crimes doesn't. That bill isn't going to change how people act. He actually had the nerve to say that this censorship law that they're pushing into schools was going to do more to impact hate than an actual hate crimes bill, if you can believe it. So there's frustration that mounts there. Any questions or comments on this? Just let you know what's where in the Senate. Guess what? The senators are up for election next year. And if that doesn't help motivate you to knock on doors, support your candidates, and make a movement happen, the only way that this stuff stops is if we change the leaders that are in office. The final issue is representation, voting rights and representation. I'm going to focus on one small portion of representation and share with you some facts that you may find shocking. Did you know that 51%, more than half, of the population in South Carolina is female? Congratulations, woman. You've outnumbered us. But did you know that only 14.5% of the South Carolina General Assembly, that's the House plus the Senate, only 14.5% are female? And 0% of the state Supreme Court is female. The only state in the country that has an all-male Supreme Court. So you talk about representation and the decisions that they are making on behalf of their constituents, more than half of whom are women, and there's only 14.5% of lawmakers out there to represent y'all. That's right. That's right. It is up to us to get behind and encourage women legislators so that our voices, their voices, can be heard. I'm going to end with one example of this, and this made national news. Talk about women representation. Have you seen this picture in the news? All right. There was a debate in the state Senate, what we'll call the minute zero abortion ban. From the moment of conception, that sperm made it through to the egg, bam, it has more rights than the mother. All right, more rights than the woman. And that's what was being debated in the Senate. The Senate has only 5 women. Out of 46 senators, only 5 women. And those 5 women, 3 Republican, 1 Democrat, 1 independent, those 5 women filibustered that bill dead. And in a nasty turn of events, you don't know if you can see what they're holding in their hands, but the Republican women received a package from a group called Students for Life that said, we want you to grow a spine and vote for McCravy's bill. That's what they said in that letter. Grow a spine. And they were sent spines in a box. And that's what they're holding up for all to see. Guess what? That didn't work so well. Those women stopped it. I want you to listen just to 2 minutes of these Republican women speaking out on women's rights.
Once a woman became pregnant for any reason, she would now become property of the state of South Carolina. Maybe I'm confused about this legislation. Or maybe the men who wrote it know more about pregnancy than the women in this chamber or across this state or the country who can actually get pregnant and give birth. Women don't have sex just so they can go have an abortion. Just like men, I don't think, have sex to get pregnant every time.
No matter the intent, there are millions of women in this state who feel like they've been personally addressed in this legislation. There are millions of women who feel like they have not been heard, and that's why I'm standing up here this long. And I've never done this before. I've never spoken this long to any bill.
Because abortion laws have always been, each and every one of them, about control. It's always about control, plain and simple. And in the Senate, the males all have control. We, the women, have not asked for, as the senator from Orangeburg pointed out yesterday, nor do we want your protection. We don't need it. We don't need it. We do not buy into the ruse that what you really want is to take care of us. Gentlemen, we've always been able to take care of ourselves.
I mean, that's brave to go against your own party like that, but they spoke forcefully. Intelligent, strong women speaking against a chamber full of middle to elderly aged men who want to tell them what they are or not allowed to do. And that just absolutely baffles me. So my hat's off to those women. Now, I will tell you that it's not all sunshine. It is not dead. This is a zombie bill. You see, what they opposed was a from conception ban, but the state Senate has already passed what they called a 6-week ban. 6 weeks before most women know they're even pregnant. And it is as arbitrary as any other time that they can pick out of a hat. And that 6-week ban has been sent back to the House, who has called an emergency session. They're debating it this week. It could very easily be on the governor's desk by the end of next week. So just to let you know that although I'm sitting here, proud of these women for speaking up, they didn't speak up at the 6-week ban. And so now we're still going to be stuck with some very draconian rules that I just can't fathom the state government wanting to get between a woman, her husband or partner, their doctor, their pastor, their lives, and we need to insert the government in there. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I thought I'd share those clips with you just to show you what's going on. And I will tell you, these women have been targeted by their Republican cohorts to be disrupted next year. The Republicans are coming after them. They never stand behind their own. They will attack you until you've gotten in line. And what we need to do is sneak attack and knock some other senators out of the pocket and put some women in their place. All right? And I mean women in the place of the other senators. We need to get more women in law, because you can see the great things that can happen, like we see with our councilwoman, Teresa Griffin. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up today. We appreciate you. All right, any comments or questions about the topics that we've brought up here so far? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Not so enthusiastically, please. All right, I hear no objections. We are adjourned for the day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.